Hello again, Sandwich. I'm Greg Anderson. Welcome into a virtual Meet the Candidates. We are looking at many different races this May, and we are looking particularly today at the 1 year unexpired term for the Select Board. My guest today. You recognize him. You've seen him before. He's been around social media, wherever you see him. Dave Sampson. Hello, Dave. Welcome.
Good to see you, Greg. I know I'm the most frequent guest on your program. I'm not sure if that's positive or negative.
I don't know. I don't even know what race we're talking to you about. Which one? Water commit? Like what is it?
Hey,
Selectman?
I like to spread myself around.
Well, let's get into that. How long were you on the select board previously?
Right. So I was initially elected in the spring of 2016. Really just decided to jump in and go head first, see what I could do to try to get elected selectman to make a difference in my hometown. And we were very successful. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing or getting into, to be honest with you. If I did, maybe I would have done things differently, but I don't think so because we were successful. But the reality is that running against two incumbents who had been in place for a good amount of time is a challenging thing to do. But we worked hard and we got the job done, and we produced a lot of results during 6 years, two of which I served as chairman.
Now, how long has it been since you left the board?
It's been exactly 3 years, actually.
Okay.
Exactly
So
3 years. So one term, actually.
one term. So tell me what you've been doing for this past 3 years.
So I've continued to work as a technology consultant, which is what I do full time, and I travel around and do that for all sorts of entities. But shortly after, about 2 months after leaving the Board of Selectmen, I was appointed to the Charter Review Committee. Those folks elected me as their chairman, actually. So I served as the Charter Review Committee chairman for 2 years, which was a very detailed effort, very complicated effort, more complex, I think, than many of us imagined. Going through the town's charter document, bringing those recommended changes to the town meeting floor, and working to push those through as appropriate based on feedback from the taxpayers and alignment with the desires of town meeting voters. I've also taken a board role at the Sandwich Chamber of Commerce, so I'm the vice chairman there. I've continued to work with Cape Cod BMX as a really a contributing board member there. I assisted the Sandwich Arts Alliance with their now occupancy of the first floor of Town Hall and collaborated with that really partly because it helped them. It's a very good cornerstone for downtown Sandwich, especially in the town hall, but it also solved kind of part of the challenge of how do we continue to utilize the first floor of the town hall space in a way that's beneficial to the community and make sure we keep the doors open there so that the general public has that opportunity to see that piece of history, right? Our historic town hall is one of the first town halls that was built in the Commonwealth. Completely and entirely because of the separation of church and state. Town meetings used to occur at the first church across the street.
So you are a busy guy. I know
I am.
personal. You're on the Sandwich Media
Oh, the
Board of
Sandwich Community
Directors.
Television Board too. I left that off the list. I apologize. I'm going to
Y-
get a
y-
demerit for that.
You are. You are. I'm on that board with you. I know. Uh, do you have time for this? I mean, being on the select board is a lot of work. We've got a lot of issues. There's a lot to do. Uh, you have time?
Um, well, I'll be honest with you. I don't have any less time than I had previously when I did this. So when I exited, one of the things I learned was how much time I spent doing this job. But the reality is that the amount of time I spend doing this job is because I have a passion for it. I'm dedicated to it, and I believe in what we do. I believe in the people that we work with. I'm very um, specific. I'm very calculated about who I choose to partner with when we work on projects for the community. And I want those projects to be beneficial to the community as a whole. So I am very willing to put the time in as necessary, as long as we're moving the ball forward in ways that really embody collaboration and community spirit. And that's really what drives my enthusiasm. It drives my passion to continue doing this work. Leaving this 3 years ago was very challenging for me personally. I have a lot of deep investment in this work. I truly believe in it. And now that I've kind of taken this 3 year break, it also gives me the opportunity to come back with a little bit of a fresh set of eyes. Now, in some ways, I haven't really removed myself. I know a lot about what's happening. I've kept track of a lot of what's happening, right? But I know how to be effective, and part of getting things done, part of really contributing to the effort is having a seat at the table. I also think that, just one other point is, especially with Mike's sudden passing, which was just such a loss for the community in so many ways. And I've been in the Rotary Club here locally for about 20 years. Mike worked alongside Mike as a volunteer for well beyond that 20 years in many capacities. Mike was such a force and dedicated to our community as well. But this is a 1 year unexpired term, right? So when you sign up to be select person, selectman, and you come to the table, it really takes a year to figure out what's going on, right?
Mhm.
It takes a year to figure out how to do the job. Um,
It's the learning curve.
it's the learning curve. One does exist, right? Regardless of your knowledge. So I'm in a position to show up on day one, be very effective, have a voice at the table, and help participate in overcoming some of the challenges that face us as a community today, right? Whoever wins this particular race will have to work to seek reelection in 12 months if they choose to do that. That is something that I intend to do, assuming the success of this election.
When you look back on your time, you actually were on the board with the current board members, correct? Were they all on at
Yes,
the
at
same
one
time?
time or another. So when I first joined in
Yeah.
2016, that would have been the spring of 2016, I was on with Patrick.
Hmm.
Patrick left in the spring of 2017.
Okay.
So Shane and Bobby and Charlie were all still in place when I left 3 years ago.
So when you look at you joining this board, you've got two guys running against you. Neither one of them have done it before. They're both calling in varying ways. Change. Change is good. One is probably a little bit more of a disruptive change than the other. If you go back on the board, isn't it a little bit of the same old, same old? I mean, you got a couple of business guys, you got a couple of, public safety guys. We've been there before. Isn't it still the same?
Well, I don't think so. I think that I really have the ability to be a very strong voice and a loud voice on that board and push things forward. I look at the accomplishments that we made while I was selectman, and they were significant. You look over sandwich history over the last 25 years, that period of time, in many ways, we got more things done than I could have ever imagined. That took time, it took thoughtfulness, it took creativity. It took collaboration and support from the taxpayers. It took nights, it took weekends, it took sitting down at the table and listening to people about what it is that they're really looking for in the initiatives that we're working on, right? All of the initiatives that we have passed were supported by town meeting voters. That's how business ultimately gets done in this town, right? So the work prior to town meeting is doing that collaboration, being thoughtful, putting together a plan that aligns with what the voters are looking for, and then putting that forward to them for approval if successful, right? So I think that force and that drive that I bring to the table is something that is very valuable. When it comes to kind of the same old, uh, the questions come down to what are the lists of concerns? What are the detractors? What are the negatives, right? There's always going to be critics out there that are looking for problems. There's going to be folks that believe that regardless of what happens, we're never going to do better, right? There's a lot of discussion I know regarding taxes and tax rates and expense, right? The reality on a lot of these things is that costs continue to go up. We are operating currently in a economic environment that is very unpredictable. very challenging for a lot of folks, challenging for business owners, challenging for residents, and costs are always going to be a concern. I've spent some time looking at the FY26 proposed budget. I know it's been a topic of discussion for various reasons, but looking at what some of those cost drivers are there, I can see how we got to where we are. Uh, Doing things like eliminating the increase of taxes, right? Lowering taxes. All of our contractual employees with the town have contracted salary increases on an annual basis, right? Healthcare costs for our employees go up annually. This coming FY26, it's almost $2 million just in increased healthcare costs for our town employees, right? You work in the
Yeah.
healthcare space. You have a
Yeah.
connection to this. So how do we eliminate tax increases when we are taking on these additional costs? And there's really only two ways to do it. One is significant cuts. And I've positioned this question to many people many times. Where would you like to see us cut? Is it in the school department? Is it in the police department? Is it in the fire department?
Yeah.
Nobody can provide me with this answer. The other side of that is, do we have a new rapid growth development process that takes place that brings in a whole bunch of new tax revenue? But to really make a difference, right? The FY26 budget is $103 million. So to really make a difference, we would need to find a revenue source that was millions of dollars and double digit millions of dollars.
So when you said earlier, I understand how we got where we are. Um, Part of where we are is my neighbors, people here in our community that are saying our taxes are too damn high, and I'm not quite sure if what we're spending is appropriate. Is that where we are as well, or do you think that's kind of an anomaly opinion?
Well, the comparison model for taxes, tax rates, and average tax bills is challenging. I spend time, and I've done this over a number of years, looking at data across towns throughout the Commonwealth. What are their tax rates? What do their average tax bills look like? The reality is that tax rates, which is something that folks like to focus on, which I personally don't believe is significantly meaningful, um, our tax rates are actually lower when you start to look at the state picture. And we're in the middle of the road from the perspective of the average tax bill. Now, I'm not justifying these costs or saying that it's okay or saying that we can't do better. Our town manager is extremely fiscally responsible, very conservative, very cautious. We don't have unexpected revenue generating needs here in Sandwich. We do not see Sandwich calling for a special town meeting for emergency funding requests due to shortfalls. That does not happen here. So that is an advantage for us. There is a lot of stability. There is a lot of predictability. There is also, a lot of review that does take place during the budget cycle regarding what we're spending and how we're spending it and where we need to allocate. So it's interesting when we look at the general government increase for FY26, the proposed general government increase, which for kind of level service budget is 3%, right? That includes those salary increases and healthcare costs and those things that I mentioned. And then the kind of extra extra opportunity was for 6%. Well, the 6% equates to about $525,000. That $525,000 is allocated for the DPW for infrastructure improvements. Now, 6% sounds like a lot when we're talking about a $103 million budget. 525,000 probably sounds like less. But I don't know many Sandwich residents who are disinterested in the improvement of infrastructure in the town of Sandwich. If anything, improved infrastructure is one of the biggest demands and needs that residents are looking for. We know that infrastructure has been underfunded for years. The town has had very specific goals around funding road improvements and road infrastructure improvements. We've done uh, various methods of fundraising at town meeting, which have had mixed success. And ultimately, getting those funds into the budget is the best way to ensure that the DPW has the funding that it needs to do those infrastructure improvements. The other thing that's interesting, and I'll make one more point because I know you want to jump in.
I got a
our
lot I
our
want to talk to you about.
our Zoom format here. I know you sent me that electric shock collar, but I didn't get a chance to put it on. But if you look at the towns across the Commonwealth, right, 351 towns in the Commonwealth, Sandwich generally has more excess levy capacity than the majority of towns in the Commonwealth. What does
What
that
does
mean,
that
right?
mean?
So we know about Proposition 2.5, right? We can basically increase our tax levy by 2.5% on an annual basis. And that 2.5% is the existing tax base from the previous year, the existing real estate tax base, plus new growth. So if you look over time at what those numbers look like, that provides us within a town meeting vote the ability to raise more money. That's really what it comes down to, based on real estate development plus that 2.5%.
Yeah.
Sandwich is holding $2.75 million in excess levy capacity. What that means is that the town has the ability to raise those funds, but they are not doing it. Again, I really think that speaks to the fiscal responsibility of the town because at the end of the day, that additional revenue, $2.75 million, just off the tax levy on a town meeting vote, no ballot box vote, could get raised, and it may or may not be observed by the taxpayers. But Sandwich is not looking to tax the residents beyond what is necessary to maintain level set services. It's a very, very deep discussion. The other piece that I only said I'd mention one more thing, but when you compare taxes, tax rates, and tax bills on a town by town basis, the variables there, especially on Cape Cod, right? We think about Cape Cod as a whole. If you compare Sandwich's tax rates and tax bills against a town with no school system, significant amounts of waterfront property, and how high value homes, their tax rates are going to be low and their overall budget's going to be lower because they're not supporting a government as big as Sandwich's government or a school system. The majority of Sandwich's spending goes towards the school system.
So let me ask you this. You have a challenger who is saying that spending is out of control. And the the board of the select board is not necessarily making decisions in our best interest. Lower tax rates. Everybody is looking to lower our taxes. Who doesn't?
Right.
But but is it overly simplified to say, come on, selectmen, you need to lower the tax rate? And by the way, are you making the right decisions? Are you doing enough research? What's your take on that?
So the first thing I'd say is that the members of the select board are in fact taxpayers. It's actually a requirement of the job. I don't know anyone that's really interested in paying higher taxes in any aspect of their life. I'm certainly not. I am willing and interested in contributing to the common good for our community. I don't see giant spending errors taking place by the current select board, right? Transparently, I believe that once things make it to town meeting, they're less likely to be changed. But the reality is that at town meeting, the legislative body of the town, whoever the voters are that show up at that open town meeting format, they are the ones that approve that budget. Nothing is spent outside of what is approved within that budget for that fiscal year. I know that there's kind of some misconceptions that occur around these things. The other piece that's important is that the assessed values of homes and tax rates, that those tax rates are a product of the total budget and the assessed values of homes. The town can't turn a knob and say, let's raise more money and turn the dial on property values so we can raise more revenue and go have fun. The town is only allowed to raise a specific amount of funds that are driven by that budget, which has been approved by town meeting voters. If those giant spending mistakes are taking place that are driving the budget, they're driving the costs up, then I would encourage anyone who's identified those to be specific about them and say, listen, I found $5 million that we can chop out over here. That's meaningful to the town, right? I don't hear anybody saying that. I don't see anybody that can answer the question about where they want those cuts to take place.
Yeah. You talk about town meeting. Uh, there's an opinion out there that the majority of people that go to the town meeting are town employees, and therefore, of course, they want to they want to vote yay on a new budget. What's your take on that? Because I have two questions on town employees, but do you think that the majority of people at town meeting are town employees?
I think that's a bunch of nonsense, to be honest with you. I think it's something that sounds like a great excuse if you're unhappy with the outcomes that you see at town meeting. I know who a lot of our town employees are. I see the folks who are town employees at town meeting, but these questions don't need to be answered by speculation. They can be answered by data, right? The town clerk keeps track of everybody that shows up at town meeting. It's public information. So all we need to do is stop by the town clerk's office, pull the attendance from town meeting. We'd be very easily able to identify what percentage of those attendees are town employees. Um, I don't believe that number is anywhere close to a majority. I could be wrong. I have not investigated this. If I was going to make the claim, I would have, but I don't believe that's the case.
On the issue of town employees, you were called out by your challenger, by your opponent, as being a town employee. You have never been a town employee,
So I
correct?
was a town employee for the 6 years that I was selectman. Anybody who is a selectman is considered to be a town employee. So I did receive a W-2 from the town of Sandwich for 6 years as a town employee. I actually believe, even though they don't get a stipend, that finance committee members are classified by Mass General Law as town employees, right? So that is the only capacity in which I have been a town employee. I have worked for a variety of municipalities, school districts throughout the country, and in some cases globally, regarding technology consulting, cybersecurity risk mitigation, those types of functions, because that's my job. That's what I do. I don't work just within the public sector. I work the majority of the time in the private sector, but that is my job. That is what I do.
You are running against a former water district commissioner, a seat that you ran for last year and did not win.
2 years ago, 2 years ago,
God, 2 years ago.
I
God,
feel the same way.
yeah, felt like it was yesterday. Um, did that sting when you lost? And are you concerned that if you lost that race, kind of the bee's nest that you kicked by running against an institutional system at the Water Commission, could that come back to hurt you?
Nobody likes to lose, right? We weren't on the wrong side of the issues. We made very valid points. I was not shocked by the outcome. There's a machine that exists. The machine was turned on, and that's how it went, right? There are, especially when it comes to wastewater, issues that still exist that will need to be addressed. And I brought this up 2 years ago. But part of the comprehensive wastewater management plan does include the allocation of some funds for the expansion of the municipal water system, which the water district controls. I brought this up 2 years ago, and candidly, at the time, it was news to some folks. But I know that the folks that live in East Sandwich and South Sandwich, especially considering some of the natural disasters that we've seen over the last year, want their water system expanded, right? They would like to see that expansion become a reality. I still think there's an opportunity for folks to make a difference there. I'm just not the person that's going to be able to drive that change based on the outcome of that election, and that's okay. If I had been in a position where perhaps I was slinging mud or fabricating information, I might feel differently about it. But we were on the right side of the issue. I am very available to folks, right? I'm very dedicated to availability to constituents, really almost anybody who I can help. It's what I like to do. So we were very forward about the issues that we identified. We were forward about the opportunities for change, what those looked like, how they could be accomplished. And you put your neck out. That's the way that this works. And it's not just about getting elected. It's about going to bat about the issues that matter to the folks in town. Um, it's not as easy as I may make it look sometimes. It is very challenging, takes a lot of time. It does take a toll on you personally, right? But when we can achieve those outcomes that lead to the best results for the community, that's what matters.
When you talking about wastewater, we've got the purchase of that land. Now there's some funding questions around the project. What do you see as the right path forward?
So, um, my current feeling is that our path of pursuing the wastewater treatment facility at the base is kind of on a time bomb, right? That's going to expire at some point in the foreseeable future. I don't believe that the feasibility of leveraging that facility, which we had hoped to leverage for a variety of reasons, I'm unsure that is going to become a reality. And I think it's really important that we find ways to move the needle on wastewater sooner than later. Um, you know, the
How can we
reality
do
is
that?
that the wastewater initiative is not something we invented. It's something that's been mandated by court order, right? There's a group called the Conservation Law Foundation. They put out all these lawsuits to require towns to do this, right? So now that the town has acquired that land, right? The land has been acquired by the town, by the way. To my knowledge, it is a signed, sealed, handed over deal approved by the Bankruptcy Court, recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So that is a done deal. The town has the land. So now we need to identify what the first phase of project will look like beyond that land acquisition, where the collection system lives, what type of a plant we need, and what the picture is going to look like for how much funding is required for that project, what the WIF will be able to provide for that, right? So we established the WIF, first brought to the table in 2018-19, specifically for wastewater, tax surcharge to create this fund, which we anticipated at the time was going to cover the majority of costs. That's the equation has changed a bit based on how construction costs have really gone through the roof on a lot of levels since COVID. But when I came to the table in 2016, wastewater was put in front of me as something that was important and we needed to address. There was a lot of slow movement around that project. We were still figuring out a lot of things. The comprehensive wastewater management plan was far from complete. It was presented while I was at the table there with the board, but we have put a lot of eggs into this basket with the base. Doesn't look like we're going to get there, so we need a good plan B. I think that the framework of that exists, but the details need to get ironed out so that taxpayers have the right expectations and we can move the needle forward. Wastewater is not a fun subject. I won't make any bad jokes because this is a family television station. I don't want to get in trouble. But it's
Come on, it's me. You can push
well,
envelopes.
during these conversations, it is just like we're talking to each other, not
Right.
on TV. But I don't want to be held accountable as a board member of Sandwich Community Television who's providing inappropriate
True.
content.
True.
But
True.
it's a very tough issue. It's a complicated issue, but it's an important issue, right? It's an issue that our community has to face. Um, you know, saying that the issue doesn't exist or is unnecessary just isn't the case. I think folks wish that maybe it was unnecessary, but it is necessary. We know that treating wastewater, not just dumping stuff in the ground, provides better environmental outcomes. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure that one out. But this is the project that needs to start to move forward and can't just go on and on and on forever for a variety of reasons.
So is it safe to say that over the next year, should you win, the select board's priorities is going to be among the many, but the wastewater uh, issue project, as well as the fire substation and the DPW building. Is there, and which I want to ask you your opinion about, but is there anything else that you think is going to be sitting, in front of
I
this
think
this
those are
board?
the two prime time topics, to be honest with you. I really
Okay.
do.
So give me your
And I
punchline
think
on,
there's, again, widespread taxpayer concern around this DPW fire station project, right? Estimated cost is $55 million. We don't have the cost detail yet on how that breaks out between buildings and site work and those types of things. But the $55 million price tag is something that no one, I really can't tell you of a single person that has told me they're in favor of supporting a $55 million price tag on a this type of project. So I've learned that the infrastructure, the DPW building, as well as the fire substation will both be metal buildings. So that's good, which also again has me scratching my head around the estimated cost and just for the information of the folks that are watching, right? These sites get designed, and once they're designed to what is generally desired or intended, they go out to professional cost estimators, and they're the ones that come up with these numbers. Part of my understanding is that there's significant cost in this project around site work because both of those buildings will be located there, and the grade of the land, how it slopes down behind the DPW and the Chamber of Commerce building, and retaining walls and drainage and all these other things that will be necessary. But I also understand it's going to be a while before they can get down to the detail. You know, very simple questions, but if there is a significant cost in changing the site plan there just to accommodate two buildings, one of the low-hanging fruit options to make this a cheaper initiative is to pick up that DPW building and drop it in Forestdale, where we own plenty of very flat land. We have our police and fire headquarters located already. Why not drop our DPW building there on some flat land and bring the cost of this project down? I don't question the need of the DPW having a better facility. The DPW has a lot of very expensive equipment. It's all stored outside, just like anything else. You leave your lawnmower outside for the winter, it turns into junk, right? Those snow plows and trucks that are sitting outside absorbing moisture all the time, it's not a good equation. That equipment needs to be stored inside. The fire station, you know, as a town, we approved the public safety complex and built that fire headquarters and police headquarters. 2017, 2018. The town also invested in the renovation and reopening of the East Sandwich Fire Station, right? That included hiring 12 new firefighters. The town has provided significant support to the fire department, significant funding to the fire department. Again, not discounting the need to get the Station 1 facility outside of the flood zone, but we have spent a lot of money there. The majority of our work as the fire department is doing medical calls. When the new facility was built in Forestdale, one of the things that was done was a number of calculations regarding travel time for medical services to reach resident homes in the event of cardiac issues and to ensure that we could reach every residence within 10 minutes. That's how this three-station plan existed, right? So I say this because I've seen discussions around, well, geez, the Forestdale station is not getting the job done, or now they need another station. There was never a plan to shutter Station 1. But in the short term, if I had to pick how we were going to work our way into this project on a phased approach, I would start with the DPW project. I would move it to the other side of town. I would take down the existing DPW facility and then look at installing a new fire station there. There's also a possibility, and I haven't set foot inside that building in a while, right? But I know the outside, the sheet metal on the outside of the DPW facility is in pretty tough shape. What if we rewrapped the metal I-beam infrastructure that's there with new sheet metal, facelifted the building, turned it into what looks like a brand new building, cleaned the concrete, resurfaced it, and it might actually do the job for a fire station. Would definitely need an addition for residents and kitchen facilities, but these are the types of things that I think about when I look at these projects, and I spend a lot of time analyzing things, more time than probably makes sense to a rational person. Not that I'm irrational, but I'm just giving you the honest answer. As an engineer, I have to think about these things. I have to think about how we got from here to here and what our choices might be. I know that the choice that's on the table is a tough one for residents. I know that other things are changing, forecast to change. We're going to be moving to regional dispatch at some point in the future. So there'll be significant cost savings with that. There's Sandwich Hollow's debt that's going to be rolling off. So there'll be changes with that, right? There's a lot of different moving parts when you look at the big picture. I think it's important to make sure that we are looking at the big picture, looking at all the variables. It's hard to take just one thing and say this without looking at this.
Well, you think about kind of, I'm not going to say it's a universal opinion, but we certainly do here, town meeting and the like, down the street at the supermarket. I look at the some of the main projects that happened when you were selectman. You've got the Center for Active Living, the new town hall, 100 Route 6A, Kensington Drive, the boardwalk. One can say these were just massive expenditures. Did we need to do it? Now you've got the DPW and the fire substation.
Hmm.
You got all of this. Everything seems to wash up as that's a Cape reference, by the way. Everything seems to wash up as, holy God, another expenditure. Who's watching the books and making sure that we're asking the right questions, that we're scrubbing this the right way? Even with the substation and the DPW building, do you feel confident that the town and the select board currently, not if you were to sit on the board,
Yeah.
are they asking those right questions? Are they scrutinizing and arriving at good, solid decisions? What's your take on that?
Yeah. I think that the current board members in the town, as well as the DPW and the fire department, understand they have the need for this infrastructure. They would like to put a proposal in front of the taxpayers and give them the choice about whether or not to move forward. My perspective on these things is that I want to put choices in front of the taxpayers that are something that they are willing to get behind, support, and agree to and want to move forward. Not just understanding the need, but that it comes forward at a cost that they are willing to pay for. The existing proposal, I don't see that being successful. I personally am very challenged and probably unable to bring forward a proposal if I don't think it will be successful. And that's what I see currently with this particular proposal. Interesting things just based on some of the other comments. The 100 Route 6A project was generally funded in cash. We're not carrying any debt from that building. We sold the Jan Sebastian building. I anticipate that something happens with the town hall, the former town hall annex building. I think that's taken a little bit longer than it should have, but I know there's a lot of different moving parts going on. The 100 Route 6A building, the cost of that building, right? The project that we did there was about $150 a square foot. The project for these new buildings is about $500 a square foot. That's the level of difference that we're looking at, right? Other projects we've done, like the skate park, the playing courts, right? CPC funds. These are funds that are allocated for building new recreational infrastructure, affordable housing, historical preservation, right? The town hall project that is going to be on the town meeting warrant this spring. Sandwich is a town that believes in historical preservation. Sandwich has invested in, maintaining and upkeeping the grist mill, the Sandhill School, the Greenville School. Do I agree 100% with all of those decisions? Personally, no. But Sandwich has a heart for historical preservation. There's a majority of community members who believe in these projects, and moving the ball down the field and what our initiatives and the steps that we're taking, what those look like. As somebody who's served in the role that I do, I really see myself as the facilitator, the person who can help get things done and listen to those folks. I may not always agree with them, but it's not all about me, right? It's about what the community is looking for, and there's different groups of constituents within the community with different needs. And that's why you'll see in my materials that I think that listening is so important. When the Center for Active Living proposal initially came forward, it was a scaled down facility. I became so convinced about the project and about the need for that type of facility in the community, not just to serve our seniors, but also to have the ability to serve families and provide opportunities for other community activities. We added a gymnasium on, which again was supported by a super majority of voters who showed up for town meeting. So dialing in and listening, understanding those needs, that's really how we get to the best outcomes.
We're running long on time, so I want to ask you this question. We are living, changing the subject, we are living in a very divisive time. recent statewide, regional, national Republican campaigns have been pretty rough. A lot of capital letters in the social media posts and kind of in your face type campaigns. You are a Republican, correct?
I am.
So how do you, how does Dave Sampson run a campaign as a Republican at a time when everyone, it seems, has this distrust of government and a gotcha mentality?
Hmm. I see that, right? And I see the corners that it comes from. I think that it is very predominant at the federal level and federal government more so than anywhere else. It's certainly an issue here in the state of Massachusetts and the Commonwealth. The challenges that I see here in the Commonwealth, especially as it has the potential to impact our community and taxpayers. And whether you agree with the spending or not, the reality is that significant spending, right, $1.7 billion or thereabouts, has been spent on these housing initiatives that have taken place. And what is going to trickle down over time is that that will cut into local aid opportunities from the Commonwealth to towns, right? There's a reason why the governor has repeatedly proposed opportunities to increase motor vehicle excise tax on a town by town basis, increase food and beverage tax on a town by town basis. That does not help our residents. It also creates inequity between communities because now, if you go move to Mashpee, you're going to have to pay more or less excise tax on your car.
Yeah.
That doesn't really help folks. And I do believe, from a generally nonpartisan perspective, right? A supermajority of any particular party doesn't always serve everybody in the best way possible. Everybody has their set of beliefs. I'm a person who respects people's beliefs. I embrace everyone. Uh, I think that prominent members of the Sandwich Democratic Town Committee would tell you that I have shown up to their meetings multiple times. I've collaborated with them on how to get things done, issues that they're working on. I've stopped by to educate them on issues becoming coming before town meeting at my request, not at theirs. I completed a lot of successful projects with Senator Moran, who was a Democrat, right? She just left office. Um, I'm a person that is a collaborator who wants to work with everybody. I'm not looking to focus on identifying with any political party as part of this race or my role at the town.
Dave Sampson, I appreciate your time and good luck to you. And thank you for joining us and talking about what you think is happening in your race. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Greg. And I respectfully request anybody that would like to reach out to me, if you want to speak with me, you can email me, dave@davesampson.com, just the way my name is spelled. I'd encourage folks, if there's something you'd like to discuss, you can call me. And I've been laughed at for this before, but I am committed to being accessible. So if you'd like to call me, my number is 508-776-8565. And I do request your vote either this week during early voting until Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 100 Route 6A, or on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm asking for your vote as well, Greg, just so you know.
Dave Sampson, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Sandwich, yeah, Dave.
I gotta twist the knife on you just a little bit. We've been doing
I,
this too
there's
long.
exactly, exactly. All right, Sandwich, I will see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for your time.